Can you hear me out there? Are you hearing me on the phone? Are you hearing me, Jake? Jake. What is going on here? Okay, now I'm going out. Are you hearing me? Yeah, hold on. Oh, shit. You know what? What is going on here? So Jake, you're seeing the video now? Okay. Hold on. Just wait a second. Hello. Still not getting audio into. Now, no.
Hey, when's the first trial? Oh, good. It's not 7.
No, it's not 7. Why do I not get any audio to hear when my audio is set?
This helped last.
Yeah. There we go. No, yep, there we go.
Yeah, you got it. Let me go out there. Try to find a quiet spot.
And then I'll need you to talk back to me.
Yeah, that's what I said. So I got to pick my battles here. This is probably the right direction. How am I sounding? Can you hear me?
Oh, Jake, just a reminder, we don't need audio back.
Oh, yeah, anyway.
Yeah, we don't need audio from you back to me. We're not doing questions.
I'll tell you how you sound. Do you want to test some things then?
I can't hear you.
That doesn't matter. You sound good.
Okay. Yeah, and we're not doing audio return, so.
Yeah, no, I heard you say it, and I said, oh, well, and then I said, do you want me to listen to how you sound? And then you're like, I can't hear. I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. All right, that sounds fine.
Leave meeting, and this, I can end this meeting. Right now, it's indicating that it's
Yep.
on. Just
Yep.
a quick press mutes it. Unmute it, and then just hold for 5 seconds to shut it off.
Where's the mute? So I just hold it to shut it off?
Yeah.
The crowd is slim tonight. We're got a 1 in 5 chance here, so 1 in 6 chance. More coming in. 1 in 7. We're calculating the odds on the number of people walking in. Small crowd tonight. 1 in 8. What wasn't this the night we're doing the $5,000 gift card? Oh no, that's later. How are we looking, Sharon?
We're looking.
We good? All right. Okay, so 7:30 drawing, $50 Visa gift card. Speaker at 8, who is going to be Toby Zenz. Please do come back for Toby. He's going to be honoring and paying tribute to a very much a luminary from the NMR industry from days gone by, Weston Anderson. Some of you may be familiar with the name, others not, but please do come by. Going to be well worth your while. And two special bonus drawings at the 10 o'clock drawing. People have been asking about these white shirts that we've been wearing all week, so we decided we just mysteriously found 2 extras, and so we'll have drawings for a couple of these at 10 o'clock, and drawing at 9, of course. But anyways, without further ado, or I don't know, maybe we should wait a little bit. No. All right. Go for it. Wait, whoa. No, we're done. We drew it. We drew it. Oh, you didn't? Oh, no, we're good then. If you got one more. I thought she drew it already. Down to the, you talk about down to the wire. You talk about down to the wire. All right, no peeking.
Last 4 numbers, 8276.
8276. There you go. All right. Nice. Nice. There you go. Yeah, ticket will be the same for. Hold on to your blue tickets because be the same color for the 9 o'clock drawing. Then we switch colors at 10. There you go, babe.
Hello. Is Toby going to be able to hear this? Everybody going to be able to hear this? How does this sound, Shelley? Does it sound okay? Or do I need to turn it up a little bit? And how's that? Hello, Shelley. You playing? Okay. Okay.
Well, yeah, 'cause I'm hearing it there. Okay, but low. Let's start moving them out to the center, all the ones that we have.
Is that better?
Yes, that's good, Eric.
That's good? That's good there?
That's good there.
You want this or a handheld?
Say that again?
Do you want?
Yeah, I want one of those when I get there. It's not 8 yet. Right.
No, it's not. I'm just wondering. I don't know. I didn't know if you wanted a handheld or this.
No, I want that.
Okay.
Where am I standing, by the way?
Well, you're going to be displayed up here. Okay. So we're going to move some of this other stuff. The presentation will be on here, and I have.
Oh, that's even better.
That's the next slide.
Right.
That's back the slide. That's forward slide.
Okay. Is there a cursor?
Yeah, unfortunately, it works great. Oops, it works great on other things, but not these TVs. It works great on my monitor at work, which I tested on, but for some reason it doesn't work on these TVs.
That's okay.
What Ron was doing was was like this, and he's just
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know why it doesn't on TVs when it works on my computer monitor. So so this will be sitting right here for you.
I mean, I hate to say this, but I'm probably going to knock everything over. So if this thing's
this
up
is-
there. Okay. And I'm going to leave my cell phone here and this.
Well, you know, Dave, you say you don't want to know, but anybody that's on it knows how many it is because you see. I know the number. So you know it's only 4. Oh, okay. So when George Gray was on last night, it was like, okay, there's 3 other people with him. And I think George Gray left. And he did. You know? He left. Yeah, I think he left about halfway through.
But the point is that we're doing it, and nobody else will care.
That's right.
Yeah, right. That's the.
We're doing it. Okay, yeah, this is
there. Yeah, exactly.
People in there don't know the room's not full of people.
Right. Yeah.
two people in the front row, you can see the top and back of their heads. So that
Well, he
people
got a
in the
real
audience knew
crowd.
there were people here.
Yeah, he got a real crowd.
Like I was saying, that was a big crowd. Yeah,
Yeah,
that one
so
was
that
good.
tells us about the future, that we should stay away from NMR.
Honestly, yeah.
Well, you know,
Not a bad
We'll
idea.
see how this one goes.
Although
Yeah.
quite a few people have walked in and asked what time Toby's speaking.
Oh, good,
if
good,
he's still
then they're
speaking.
gonna,
and I mean,
That I
this
didn't hear
one
about
is,
people.
although it's NMR related, it's not, I'm talking about NMR, I'm not talking
oh,
about
right,
what we
about
do.
pulse
This
sequences,
is,
yeah.
we're talking about somebody that's a pioneer.
Yeah, right.
To the field. Okay, and maybe we talk about pulse sequences in for a moment or two, but I don't think it's gonna be, it's not like Bill's talk last night where he was talking about exactly how.
It's a shame we missed Gary. I know Gary's talk is going to be so fun.
Yeah. So Gary,
Gary Martin
Gary
on
Martin.
Saturday.
Oh,
He was
right.
supposed to, his staff was
He was one of
so
those.
fun. Anyway, we should gather.
We should get Gary for something else. Yeah.
No, we
He's
should
not
do
doing
a,
a
we
full
should do
version.
all the remote speakers. We should invite them for a Zoom meeting and then do a 3 hour, 2 or 3 hours.
Oh, right.
Recording in progress.
Yeah, let's think that through, so how, on one hand, a Zoom speaker like my guy, Andy Lang, I mean, he's doing me a favor.
Right, I mean,
Yeah,
whoever wants
and
to.
so
If
I
they don't
was
want to, that's
embarrassed
okay.
that, he couldn't get to talk.
No, but
Yeah.
if they don't, that's okay, but you
Yeah.
may have, you definitely want to talk.
yeah, he was like,
He was really
when I
disappointed.
was emailing back and forth with him
Yeah.
during the meeting, he was like, I'm like, we're seriously, because of problems, we're seriously considering doing a half day or a day long thing.
Oh, you told him about that?
And he's like, that would be great, because I would love to do these.
Oh, good.
They want to talk, but we owe it to them to let
Yeah.
them talk. If it was in
This is
something
this
where
is
you
the
were
event
asking a
for him.
favor and
Yeah,
asking
yeah.
them to ship a sale.
Putting his work in front of the scientists, right? So
You
this is
were-
something that you would want.
You were in contact with Andy then?
I was not in contact with Andy.
Andy, yeah, right,
Not
okay.
not Andy, but
We're gonna put a picture
He
of
gets
there.
the alien.
Oh, okay.
We can definitely have Gary.
Andy's sort of an outsider, so he doesn't quite know what's going on.
His cat, I know.
with items.
I just need
Yeah,
to
so,
know.
He's already doing us a favor, so you might not want it.
Yes, yeah, we,
If Andy doesn't want to, that's okay.
yeah, right, yeah.
We'll certainly check with each individual. but
Right, we should.
People like Gary to let them speak.
Gary will definitely love to speak, because I know you
Is that
put in a lot of effort, and he used to send me every other day a text message. And, guess what? I'm having this fun of my day of putting this stuff together. I said, oh my God, Gary.
We tried. We tried so hard.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, with someone like Gary, maybe we could attract maybe one, Gary Martin
and
speaks.
this is Ivan, but it's not, and we're gonna do a fun one this time around. Something not specific to NMR. We're gonna do a fun, and do 2 meetings in one.
Oh, okay,
We
right,
can
yeah,
just, we
yeah.
can just do a,
It would
we
be
can
a
just do
nuance,
a,
yeah, not
this is
being-
independent of, our workshops, right?
Oh, I see, so we can do as you said before, the virtual speakers that we lost.
Yeah, we can invite them. Yeah.
And it's going to be as fun as the original meeting, yeah.
Right.
And we're not dealing with the live stuff, we're just.
Yeah, kind of just a Zoom meeting, yeah.
Or we could fly Dave and Chris and Dan and a few other people into it.
Yeah, if you guys want to stand.
Well, the thing I was talking about with John, and, John loves California so much.
Well,
We
yeah,
can also find him a place in California, I was talking about their location.
Yeah. The problem is transport levels.
Well, sure, yeah, yeah. Well, I'd love to actually stay in Pittsburgh for the.
Yeah, it may be fun to go.
They text me back and said, yeah, they'll bring them.
Like my office.
Yeah, like,
We have 20,000 square feet of building. We have like 40,000 square feet of stuff.
Yes, thank you.
Well, that's, actually, we've had a whole bunch of people come and ask for the time to talk. There's been at least, I don't know, 12, 15. Coming in. That doesn't
If
even
you want to
show
just
up.
send the little, we're gonna put them in rows right here.
Send
Thank
for
you.
it.
Donna, a text message is gonna come to you, can you send me the code when you get it?
What do you need here, Sean?
Text message with the code. They're not letting me guide.
so, I mean, it was kind of, we didn't quite know what was happening at the coming in and lining up in the hall.
It is 329,422. Right.
Well, I told him I was giving it, but I don't know if he knows about it.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Have a great day.
John, can you slide out of the way?
How alert?
Say again?
This gentleman's gonna, oh, he's gonna walk back.
More alert this time than last time. Last time you couldn't be doing it.
Yes, you too, thank you. We'll be done about, 9:15. Thanks.
So, go ahead.
So that card is given.
Well, I used to say that the only people should be allowed to have that.
I didn't get that out right away. I didn't know about it.
But now people are 71.
Eric, where do you want me for the introduction? Just sort of along the
Your,
podium here?
the view is from about here
All right.
to about here.
All right, off the middle.
So, you know, in the middle, right, you know, right here is good.
Okay.
I'll put that.
Oh, geez, we still got 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I tested these microphones.
What's up?
I tested these microphones at the office,
Right.
sitting in front of the speaker in my office playing music all day long.
Yep.
They lasted 8 hours.
Really?
Yeah,
How long are they lasting now?
about 4. I'm gonna test them again when we get back. I don't know if it was just an anomaly or, you know, turning it on, turning it off is causing a quicker drain on it, or, you know, because when nobody's using it, I turn it off to save battery, you know, it's like, it's weird. So,
Eric, how much of this corner did you see? Does it matter? It's nothing in there?
I don't think I see the t-shirts. Or the shirts. No, I'm not seeing the shirts. I'm not even seeing John's beard, so.
Oh, right, yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah, Varian bought, it's just shortly after they bought Chem Magnetics, which, you know, which was,
I didn't see any.
Asked Bill on the anomaly board, and I collected my $200. Got to take that into account.
I'm not sure how that worked.
Varian is paying me less than
Now we're at karaoke. Wow, okay, that's not nice. Sorry. Yeah.
But
It's raining.
Is it actually raining?
Oh, when was it?
I never saw it.
People came in and said it was raining when it was during the raffle.
It might be starting to rain. It was beautiful out there.
It's not raining by the time we go back.
Well, that really didn't stop.
But I guess I'll say
Had no choice.
joined Varian in 1980.
About Western Union.
I opened it, I looked at it. Being a person whose wife has just passed away.
I went to
So
close it,
I
dropped my phone.
No, I have empathy for that, for her daughter.
Right.
That's
Well,
right.
Howard-
Yeah, sure, no
Howard's
problem.
wife Jenny passed away, and
I better do it right now, or I'll.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm asking you right now.
Yeah.
I just remember the lady who takes care of all the time down there calling me, Toby,
Yeah.
she's in bad shape, what are we gonna do without Jenny? And she called him, she was passed, he called the board, and said, let's give the flowers, and I can't over. You know, he seems okay.
Howard. Yeah, you're talking about Howard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This stuff, this whole thing, the West thing, the Howard thing.
I'm on the
for
struggle
me,
bus.
very,
Having them grow old and become.
well, you put yourself in the same position.
Here's how you do this.
Figure it out.
Well, yeah, except the way I look at it, and I'm probably, I don't know how much younger I am than you, but I'm here. Something
almost
will
look
strike
like,
me down.
Well,
I'm not going to get upset about what might happen to me.
no, that's very true, Dave.
And I'm hoping it goes fast.
Yeah, well, that's the other $24.
Yeah, that's the real question.
I'm tempted after this to go up to the bar and get an old fashioned.
Well, maybe you
Well,
don't.
at least it's the last one. Well, how much damage can you do?
Exactly.
In my case.
Well, that's what you gotta do.
Famous last words.
You're not NMR anymore.
You may want to rethink that question.
And you're retired.
Maybe you're still there, but you look at different,
Yeah.
That's one of the things, potentially sooner or later, we all need to find out. That's not a wise.
well, for me right now, it's walking my dog in the park. But, you know,
Oh, no, something that lasts for you, stimulating your mind.
right.
Not necessarily the work that you got dedicated to your life. Exactly.
And also, you know,
Everybody's hanging out.
just relax and Western style.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's one thing I miss out, you know.
Like all the care saying here's what we're doing, that's going on.
Well, I mean, so, you know, my mother-in-law,
So what is,
And this is Paolo's.
Is it Paolo?
He's so nervous. He's like, I need to watch all these.
there he is.
That got me the first time.
So what is, Marvel being so nice to us? Oh, you're wonderful. This is fantastic.
He does that. He did that last time we were here too.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, I remember that, because I remember thinking the same thing. I remember thinking it didn't sound sincere.
Karen was fast.
yeah.
Now she,
Well, I mean,
What it's worth, I did tell him I liked his vibe and what he was doing. Maybe he thought he had to reciprocate. But I don't think we're the
none of us felt
best,
like
most professional or whatever. Yeah, it was just a little.
I don't know what Karen.
Go sing with Paolo. Go sing with Paolo.
There's just Dave in there in the back.
In July,
Go there, get it away.
she had a personal trainer.
There's a more important thing.
We'll pay you not to let Don yodel.
And I'm getting really tired after these things now.
But that's
And so we should go to the doctor. And the doctor diagnosed it.
He was there 2 minutes ago.
But that's actually good in the end.
I'm gonna look at it and say, I don't know.
Oh, you made better. You made a better choice. Is that ice cream or sorbet?
Sorbet.
Yeah, Eric made a better choice.
Where to draw the line.
I made a good dinner choice.
Oh, right, well, stop when you're interested. Stop when you're interested. When you're no longer interested. Yeah, that's the way I
But
am.
we should be fair.
It's on, John. John, it's already on.
Oh, it is? Oh, I just shut it up.
Well,
And I feel that, you know, I'm having this conversation because I feel the same way as you. I don't
Don's in the waiting room?
Yeah, he wants to listen to his earpiece.
Oh, okay.
West Miami. Yeah, okay. So you've got an assistant picture, yeah. You know, we have, and Joel needs to put out those products too, because there's others out there.
They wouldn't say how far they would go, or they, but under none.
Ooh, dessert.
I cook my figure.
I know you do.
I can afford.
I know you can.
Yellow just reminded me, like, I sit on my sometimes maybe over there 2 years ago. Was sitting at the pumpkin with this guy and his wife. And I know it's a
Well, I mean, certainly you need to be trained.
I said something about picking
Well,
about
I-
it a little because they were
That was everything we were doing, right?
No,
Oh,
but
that's good.
I
Okay. Well, yeah, but getting him
I need to sit with
the right orientation,
all day and now I can live.
getting him to think about the right things. Oh, yeah, the 800 is awesome. Yeah. But you put the gigahertz there, and then you move to 6 with the 5.
30 to home.
Oh, that's true. Oh, where they bundle, yeah, and all of that stuff, yeah. Well, that's what they did, I know. Designed all the roads that are having, similar to what about the floor. Although the others are ready. You went, the 860,
Yeah,
63, so it's
same here.
it's
I
on,
joined
but I think the other one, they just go where they go.
And you and I.
They just put them in there, leave the 6 there. Does that put that, so that was 1, 2, 4, 5 magnets.
I was thinking about it.
So you need one, oh, but if you do that, then you have to get one extra
really worried about
pressure and power. That's the only way.
Because she's going to my boy this thing
Yeah.
I
lost that.
here.
The name is
Okay, okay. Oh, yeah, right. Oh, yeah. She
Yeah.
went on another ski trip. So where else did they go? They went somewhere else.
Somewhere Kingston and
Yeah,
and
she
she
went
was
on.
also in band. We were in band.
Yeah, oh, she was doing them all, yeah. Oh,
Well, like
really?
we showed
Okay.
like four.
You want to delay it a little bit?
I'm ready.
Okay.
People hungry after the pandemic.
Just wait, we're gonna wait a little bit, John.
Okay, that's fine.
No?
no.
How are you tonight, Krish?
Doing good.
That's good. That's good. That thing popped right up on its own.
It just got stuck in there. That's an elasticity.
Oh,
I
boy.
thought that the glass fell and I looked up slowly.
You're all leaving tomorrow or day after?
Oh, the guys.
Well, we're gonna be, packing up everything tomorrow. Me and Ann are gonna be staying around for another
Okay,
few
so
days.
you're still
Yeah.
there. You guys are going to
Yeah, they're flying out on Friday.
not flying out.
We weren't sure how long the pack-up would take, so scheduling the flights and just,
No,
we didn't feel like rushing. How about you?
Friday.
Friday, same?
the field of view?
No expectations.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they're almost, you're just off the dead center.
Okay, good.
So, yeah, that's Summerlin here on 297.
What do you think? Couple of more minutes?
Oh,
Couple more minutes?
yeah, well, at least. Okay. Wait a minute, Varian. So I was at Varian in 1980 and I went back. And when did you share an office with Eric last summer? In 1980. Oh, okay. So I don't know how long Garrett did.
Hey, Ron.
Are we ready?
Up to you, Eric.
Oh, yeah. It's up to Toby. Toby, well, whenever you guys want to start. I mean, I had a bunch of people told me they were going to come to this, but I don't see them, so I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, E.T. just showed up and said he's coming back. He'll be back.
Wander over and say Toby is here.
Yeah, 3 more minutes, John.
Okay.
Dave's gonna
All right, that's fine.
go somewhere.
Let the
Okay.
let the remote people know that it's remote.
I did. I said that we were just waiting a couple more minutes.
Okay, good. Good.
Technology's changed everything. It truly has. Cameras with feet, ways of one electron.
That microphone's good to go, Toby.
I don't know.
It is.
It's,
It is.
it's good to go.
Quick sound check and that was good.
All right.
One should be done.
And, oh, that's right, that doesn't work. Yeah, I forgot.
Mine's louder.
I will, when it's time to talk. Yeah, excellent.
Good.
Very good. And maybe, is there an orientation for this thing that makes sense?
Just right about here should be good.
Here? Trying to point it upward.
Yeah,
You do it, you do it.
like that.
Okay.
Just letting everybody in.
And Dave, field of view is sort of here, just to the other side of the podium.
Okay, you want me to get out of the way?
You're out of the camera.
I'm out of
view.
the camera
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
right now. As soon as you come past that corner of the table, you're in the view. Okay, right.
Do you need this?
Oh, do I need a microphone to talk?
I'll pass you mine.
pass it.
Yeah, and then I'll get the heck out of the way.
Yeah. For our Zoom participants, if you please would pin the MR Resources video, that would be your best viewing experience.
So, welcome to the third and final nightly Ivan Hour here at the 2022 ENC. For tonight's Ivan Hour event, we're very lucky to have a distinguished speaker, long time and very important career in the NMR industry. In fact, many of you have likely held a Toby Zenz designed probe in your hands at one time or another. But Toby is here tonight to pay honor and tribute to, well, one of the heavyweights in the business. And I'm going to turn the microphone over to David Rice. And Dave, if you would like to make the formal introduction, please.
Okay. Okay. I've known Toby since I joined Varian in 1993, and he joined Varian in 1980 to build probes, and had a little stint at Nalarak, and then built that company up, and then joined Varian again. And so I've known him for years, and he was also longtime friends with Wes Anderson, and so he is going to give a talk about Wes. And with that, I'll give the mic to Toby.
Thank you, Dave. I've got this here.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So, just so we get everything figured out and get the ground rules started, this talk is not just about Wes Anderson, it's also about the history of Varian and how the players came to be. And I knew Wes, I never worked with Wes on a project, and actually only knew Wes very well from about 2005 up to, I don't know, maybe 2010 when Agilent purchased Varian. And the way I knew Wes was because when Nalarak was purchased by Varian, a bunch of us went down to Varian, and one of my colleagues, Athol Gibson, got involved with Wes worrying about DNP and things like that. And then also a friend of mine who is now working at SpaceX, saying he's responsible for every electron in the Falcon capsule. I don't want that job. No, thank you. And so anyhow, we got involved with Wes and his wife, and we became socially interactive. We'd go out to a restaurant in Palo Alto and eat dinner, and so I got to know Wes and his family fairly well. So one of the things I wanted to point it out here is that in all of this, many of the early Varian pioneers served in the service during World War II. Wes did not. If you subtract 28 from 41, you'll find out that he was at a young age, still too young to be drafted. But many of the other ones, such as Jim Chilry, and then again, some of the others were drafted. So that's the thing I wanted to point out. Now, the one other thing about this, when you look at this, and I did talk to Wes not too long before he passed away, you know, you just see his life and what it's like to get old and things start working as well and whatnot. And so it really kind of got to me thinking about it all. So I get a little bit emotional. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is right now. So anyhow, let's go to the next slide. And so this sort of gets into the emotional end of it. I have on the right what I call the human condition arrow. And I say it keeps moving every day, every second, and sometimes up and sometimes down. And now that I am 77 years old, I know that it won't be that many more years before I can't see its movement, okay? And so I do know that its movement is marked by what we do to help mankind, and especially now with the war in Ukraine. I don't think it's moving in a positive direction. I call it a moral outrage. That's how I personally feel about it. I've written every congressman and senator that I can think of in the state of California. And I just express my fear of what's happening. But I know Wes contributed a lot to better the human condition, and I just know that his contributions won't go unnoticed by all who knew him or all who learn of his accomplishments in the future. So all of that being said, let's move to the next slide. So there is a picture of Wes, probably at the prime of his career, in the Varian Library in 1975. And the reason I chose that picture was that I wanted to talk about how he got to that position. And so he was born in Kingsburg, California, which is about 30 miles southeast of Fresno, mostly south. And his mother was a nurse, and his father was an agriculture loan officer. and he grew up on a raisin farm. Now, one of the problems I have with raisin farms is I have no idea what grapes they grow. If somebody knows, please tell me. So if you're in California today, and I live in Monterey, and you drive south, I go south to Santa Barbara often to see one of my friends down there, all you see is grapes growing in every direction. And you sometimes wonder how there could possibly be that many grapes grown. But then you look around here and everybody's got a glass of something in their hand, so we all know where that comes from. Anyhow, so he, at an early age, constructed electrical circuits and he used rural telephone batteries to do it and power them. And throughout his youth, he was always involved in home projects that included circuits and radios. He actually worked in high school in a radio repair shop, crystal radios, regular radios, radio tubes, everything. He was involved in all of that. And throughout his youth, he was involved in these home projects. And he was encouraged by an uncle who was a radio enthusiast, etc. And that probably fueled most of what he did in high school. And then in high school, he enjoyed chemistry and physics and was encouraged by his teacher to apply to Stanford University for college. And West attended Reedley College for 2 years and then applied to Stanford. Now, I looked up Reedley College to see if it still existed. It does, and it's part of the very large junior college circuit in California. I think we had something like 250 junior colleges in the state of California. It's immense. Anyhow, he attended Reedley College for 2 years and then applied to Stanford University. He completed his bachelor's degree in physics with distinction in 1950, and then he applied to graduate school at Stanford and received his master's degree in physics. And after his first year, and then he selected Felix Bloch, who had won the Nobel Prize in Physics for his contribution to the discovery in NMR, as his PhD advisor. In his second year in graduate school, he spent the summer working for Varian Associates in California and mapping magnets fields with NMR equipment. And then also in his second year, he got married to Jeanette Arndt, an education major who was taking graduate courses at Stanford. Now there's a picture of Wes and Jeanette. And one of the things that really impressed me about Jeanette was that she was a fantastic photographer. She would send you these photographs on her Christmas cards. And one year she sent one which is a picture through the windshield of her car of a leaf. And you just looked at this thing and you couldn't believe how beautiful it was. And it was just fantastic. She was a graduate of Pomona College, the same college that Jennifer Doudna, who wrote the CRISPR stuff, came from, one of the Claremont colleges. And so, a very nice couple. Anyhow, next slide. So, in his third year, Professor Bloch, who had won the Nobel Prize in Physics for his work on the discovery of NMR, asked Wes and fellow graduate student James Arnold to build a new spectrometer that was capable of detecting protons with the aim of being able better to relate spectra to the chemical structure of molecules. Now, one of the very interesting things about Jim and Wes is that from graduate school in the time till they retired, they were together the entire time. And I didn't work with Wes, but I did work with Jim. And I did work with Jim on working on zero susceptibility materials. And he also did this wonderful probe in CERN called the Racetrack NMR probe, and it used inductive coupling. It was way ahead of its time. And the other thing about Jim was that he was very understated. And one of the guys, who we'll see in a minute, told me, unlike Wes and somebody who's a bit older, more like Jim Chilry, he was a Top Gun in the Navy, fought in the Battle of Midway, came back, went to school at Stanford. Anyhow, I haven't seen Jim, and one of the problems with this talk is that just about everybody in it is dead. And the history is fading. And I'll talk about that in a minute too. Anyhow, so it turns out that Wes actually did the first spectrum of ethanol and was the first spectrum of coupled ethanol. showing the actual coupling of all the peaks. And while at CERN, West did this experiment, and this is basically a reconnection or whatever of something that Ray Freeman said. And it shows here 2,3-dibromopropene, and it's a homonuclear double resonance experiment. And you might say, well, a double resonance experiment is where you can decouple protons and look at carbon, but it didn't manipulate the spectra. It didn't change how the spectrum looked. And so this experiment shows you how they can actually see that there was correlation between the various elements in the spectra. And so here he decoupling the methyl CBRH2 group and seeing a change in the far right multiplet on the right, and you see there underneath it the result of 2 doublets. So that allowed them to see this correlation. And as Way says, this was clearly a demonstration of correlation between the spins, and it can be argued that this manipulation logically led to Jenner's demonstration that double resonance experiments could be more efficiently done by 2D NMR, and this led to what is now standard spin choreography, which is part of modern 2D NMR techniques. And this is pretty serious stuff considering when it was done. Anyhow, so then after Bloch said, well, you know, I want to move back to Palo Alto because I hate this administrative stuff I'm doing at CERN, and he did, then both Wes and Jim were faced with moving back to Palo Alto or wherever. And so Wes moved back to Palo Alto and started working again at Varian Associates and began to work again on magnetometers, which were used in anti-submarine warfare and also to detect landmines. And this got him a deferment out of the Army, which was a good thing. And I actually checked to see what year that was. It's 1955. So the Korean War was over. It ended in 1953. So he also began work to improve the resolution of NMR magnets and to use them for chemical analysis. And he found out that there are some people that suggested that spherical harmonics were a good way to try to do this. And he's constructed a set of shim coils that would lay flat on the pole pieces of the magnet, which is important. And anyhow, when he did that, on the left you can see this early Varian NMR shim set. Now it turns out that occasionally I have this pleasure of driving to Albuquerque and visiting ABQ-MR, where Aichi Fukushima and Mark Conradi reside. And so when I was visiting there, Mark says, oh, Toby, I have to show you this. And he goes over to this iron magnet, pulls off the shim set, and sure enough, on the back is Wes Anderson's initials. So there it is. The backside where the initials aren't shown, so you can see the thing on it, the actual coils. And then, of course, Wes also at that time started constructing zero susceptibility materials by placing diamagnetic and paramagnetic pieces, conductors together in close proximity, and this improved the resolution of probes. Now, I have to say that when I was at NALARAC, that was a problem, and I had to learn how to do a lot of plating. And I became an expert in plating materials. I really know how to do this. And in fact, I even tell the Japanese people how to do it. They don't like what I say, though. Anyhow, so that's that part of it. And so now they had a magnet that could be shimmed well with a good set of shims. And so in 1960, after they figured out how to do things like put a super stabilizer in the magnet and various other things, they came out with this first analytical instrument. And I can remember when I was an undergraduate doing NMR on this thing. And I did things that kind of messed things up, but I'm still alive. I guess that's what counts. But anyhow, that was a very big deal. And then Martin Packard, who was the person that was so nice to get the first dip in the trace on the oscilloscope showing that there was a magnetic resonance. He ran back while Bloch was talking to somebody about nuclear moments and things like that and saw something that was much more important. He managed to say, oh, I only think it'll sell a few hundred units, but they sold over 1,000. So that was a very big deal. So here's what I call the Magnificent Seven. and I'm going to talk a little about each one of them. As I said, I've also already worked with Jim Arnold. And in 1980, when I was at Varian for the summer, Richard Ernst was visiting, and I met him in his office, and very, very briefly, I mean, it was like maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I can't remember. But interestingly enough, at the ENC in Pittsburgh, which you remember well, he came and ate breakfast with me and asked me how I was doing on all the probe stuff and everything. He was really quite a considerate guy. And then there's Ray Freeman, who I've talked to a little, but not extensively. Also a very talented guy, and also a lot of very great students over the years. And then there's Howard Hill, who was my boss eventually at Varian. And then, of course, there's Jim Chilry. And Jim was not a physical chemist. He was basically an organic chemist. He was a guy that you couldn't think of doing anything that was terribly physically chemical related, but he was very much pushing all the things all the time to get the instruments more usable and much more capable of doing chemical analysis. And then there's Martin Packard, the guy that actually saw the first NMR trace at Stanford. And he would show up at our lunch table every once in a while and look at you and say, "What have you done for NMR today?" And at that point, you wanted to shrink under the table, of course. And then, of course, there's Wes on the far end there at the library. So now we're getting into the part which is probably the most famous part for Wes, is the Fourier transform NMR. And a lot of people don't realize that Russell Varian actually patented this in his initial patents for NMR in 1956. A little about Russell Varian. Because we had the quote Varian award every year, and Russell was basically the guy whose name we used in that. He was a terribly dyslexic person. He was incredibly dyslexic, and he was literally not allowed into the physics program at Stanford, even though his name is on the side of the building. And so that's a very interesting thing. But his idea was to use a broadband excitation method, and then there were too many frequencies, and so when you tried to collect them all and digitize them all in some way, it just became impractical to do it. It was just too long and too difficult to do. So Wes got involved, and after several attempts, Wes produced the idea of using short coherent RF pulses that could excite the spins while the resulting FID was heterodyne down to from the carrier frequency. And then even though the scheme was advantageous, the process of digitizing the signal remained cumbersome. And slowly the kinks of the process were worked out, and when the advent of small laboratory computers became a reality, the NMR signal to noise, once they got everything working, increased by a factor of 1,000 for the same time of data accumulation. And this is obviously in concert with Richard's efforts. And what I don't know from the literature, and this is the part that's kind of hard to get at, and maybe there's somebody around who actually knows, and maybe Howard would remember, I don't know. But the thing that's interesting is that according to Ray's reports and other reports that Martin Packard did, and then Wes himself, he said, "Oh, I just told Richard to do it." I just can't imagine somebody said, "Oh, just do this," you know, just a small little thing to do on the side. But he did do it, and he came there as a postdoctoral student in 1963, and he was keenly interested in improving the sensitivity of NMR. And frankly, it's rather amazing he persevered in accumulating the signal and then transferring it to a tape and then to IBM punch cards. And they literally took all the data, transferred to the tape, made the ID punch cards, and then took it off across the town to have some computer facility do it, and they came back with a spectrum. Pretty amazing. And so basically at the end, this is how Richard won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for doing all this. And and also he applied it to MRI. Now I want to go back a slide here, if that's possible, and talk a little more about Ray Freeman. Ray came to Varian in 1962, and he basically sent out some sort of note to everybody saying he was interested in taking a position somewhere else, and Wes and Martin Packard responded, so he chose Varian. He came for 6 months and stayed for 12 years. So that's how that happened. And so when you look at this, the brain power of it all, you just say, how could anything go south? But it did. Anyhow. So there's another guy who I worked for, and everybody there I'm pretty sure knew. And again, the history is kind of hazy because you can't quite figure out what position he had and whatnot. Now, Bob Codrington joined Varian in 1962, about the same time the others in the previous slide did. And he was a Canadian who got his undergraduate degree from UBC and served in the Canadian Navy. Then Second World War, got his master's degree in mathematics from UBC, and then for reasons that are not clear to me, he got his PhD from Notre Dame. Then he taught at Rutgers for a while, and in the history of him, what you see is he taught at Rutgers, and he did experiments with Albert Einstein and Oppenheimer and Torrey and others. So it's really quite high-level stuff that was going on. And then he was named to be the, I don't know quite how to say what it is, but before I get to that paragraph there, he was supposedly promoted to a position at Varian, some engineering manager of the instrument division. But it's not clear, and from other reasons that I can tell you about, it's not clear that he was actually managing the significant 7 there. It's hard to say. But anyhow, he was a very wonderful man, and everybody really loved him, and he spent a lot of time recruiting new talents such as George Gray, Steve Smallcombe, myself, Lynn Batchelor, David Foxhall, just to name a few. Now, I attended Bob's memorial service, and one of the things that I remember very vividly is telling my wife, Linda, I said, we're driving up some hill in Los Altos Hills, and I said, when we get there, we're going to see a lot of really old people like me, and I don't want you to be terribly surprised. Well, there were a few old people, but the interesting thing was there were an awful lot of young people there, and I talked to all these guys, and what I found out was all of them had been recruited by Bob at some point, which was extremely interesting. Anyhow, one of the things that Bob put in my life, which I very much remember, was that he talked to me about this reentrant probe cavity, and from that came the idea of the 1 NMR probe. So I'm just saying that. That was a very interesting thing. And I last saw Bob in about 1998, I think it was, at a Varian old-timers meeting. And that was it for that. And 2 months later, I found out he had passed away. Okay, so I mentioned about Wes and his new position there at the Varian Systems and Techniques Laboratory. I've never heard that term used before. Everybody at Varian called it Varian Central R&D. I have no idea where that came from. But anyhow, in 1972, Wes was named the manager of that laboratory, and a new position came after a brief departure from Varian due to a management malfunction. He was laid off. And the thing that's so funny about it is that everybody I talked to, including Wes, cannot find out why. But I did find out in talking to people, Phil Horning told me, he said, well, the guy that supposedly fired him, Peter Llewellyn, who also passed away, so I can't find out from him. And the thing that's so funny about Phil Horning says, well, Peter told me that he was really laid off. Now I have no idea why that would happen. What I can imagine is that the bean counter said, well, we got all these eggheads over there, the Magnificent Seven, and why are we paying all these people when nothing's coming out that we can sell? Which they didn't look at that in a positive way. And anyhow, so he was named 2 weeks after he was laid off to this new position, which he remained the manager of for the rest of his career. And so that's a very interesting thing as well. So in his new position, which wasn't an NMR, he immediately started getting into ultrasound cardiac imaging, which became a rather big thing at Varian for a while. And they demonstrated this to the doctors at Stanford and at UC Berkeley, and they wanted a unit for evaluation. And then he also switched gears a little bit and got involved in the development of the rotating anode X-ray tube. And that was a pretty big thing for the Varian Medical Division because these X-ray tubes were heating up, and when they heat up, the electrons that hit the anode literally dig a hole, the cathode to the end, literally dig a hole in it. So if you rotate that surface around, it spreads the wear out, and so they could last a much longer time, and that was a very desirable thing as well. So one of the things that strikes me, and this is kind of like how companies are managed. Varian was always sales-oriented. The managers generally came from a sales background. At Agilent, it was the other way around. The management was all basically marketing, and they had their own sales division. And so it's a very interesting trade-off. And one of the things that always got me about Varian was that they seemed to always have their head in the sand. I can remember, I said I came to Varian in 1980, but actually I came there to work for the summer. I shared an office with Gareth Morris at that time. I went back to Tulane University and came back in the fall. And the head of Varian, Norman Pons. Oh, well, you know, we've decided that mainframes are the future. The very next year, Apple came out with their little computer, and the next year after that, I bought my first IBM PC. And literally after an ENC stopped in Scotts Valley to get a disk which had Turbo Pascal on it so I could do some field calculations, et cetera. So it just shows you how ahead of the time they were thinking at the time. So it's really a problem. And I think it continued that way for a long time. Anyhow, so Weston on education. As I said earlier in the talk, I didn't work on any projects with Wes. However, I did stop by his house early before we were supposed to arrive for dinner at a local restaurant. And basically, Athel's wife and my wife and Jeanette did something, and we all showed up at this restaurant, which was on El Camino. And so Wes took me around and showed me his workshop and showed me all the projects he was working on with the kids in the neighborhood. And he stated that a number of times that the kids today are not interested in how things work, and their cell phones and computers. And I really think that is a problem, and I don't know how to stop it. Now, Ron and I were discussing this at sort of dinner, and we came up with the idea that there are these programming things that Apple has now where you can program, and then maybe you can take the programming and turn it into something that you can make a circuit out of, et cetera. And that the kids can see how the cell phone works or the computer works or something like that. But that's a pretty important step. Now, the last thing that I wanted to point out that is that Wes and Jeanette contributed on an annual basis $15,000 to the Kingsburg High School scholarships. And he was a wonderful person who gave back to his community. And that's a really, I think, important thing. And so, oops. Aha. And at the memorial for Wes in Grover Beach, Wes's daughter and son said that Wes was always making gadgets around the house. And Lucy and Joel said that he was 50 years ahead of his time. Now we have Alexa, but 50 years ago, Wes had his house wired so he could always tell if a door or window was open or closed. So nothing really changed from when he was a kid in Kingsburg making all these circuits to this. And I think that's really the key. And so I guess he didn't stray from the young kid that he was involved in electric circuit projects. And then the last slide was one that was taken before his memorial, actually before he passed away. But there he is, enjoying ice cream at 93. That's just fantastic. Anyhow, so because I did this talk and I want to be another person who gives back to the community, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Varian Young Investigator Award. And this is an award that was started by Howard Hill and myself and Chris Murphy and Ernest Wong, Dan Iverston, Lima Baltisis, George Gray, Steve Smallcombe, Toby Zenz, and this guy, Dave Rice. I forgot to put your name in. I can't remember anything, Dave. Anyhow, the goal of this award is to reward young researchers in magnetic resonance for their effort. And the award is given out on even number years at Euromar and odd number years at Asilomar. And we just gave out the award for the 4th time at Euromar. And we will be giving it out next spring at Asilomar. And you can contribute to this award at Asilomar if you contribute through the ENC. It's a tax-deductible 501c organization. And so that's kind of trying to figure out. And the reason for that is that we allow for childbirth years for women, et cetera. So there's a good reason for some of those things to happen. But what it is just the Young Professor Award, basically. Because this year, the ones in Euromar, and there were 8 candidates, and all of them were just fantastic. You could have taken a quarter and flipped it. It wouldn't have mattered who got it, really. They were just that good. And so my reaction is, well, there's nobody in industry that may be doing really great research, but we have no idea, because they don't have 50 publications. Nobody in industry publishes 50 papers. So we don't know how to, we need to somehow arrange this so that it's not quite so one-sided. And if you have suggestions, I would really appreciate hearing about them. So anyhow, thank you very much for your attention, and I hope you learned something about Varian and Wes.
Thank you, Toby, for a wonderful talk about Wes. And actually, I'll ask if there are questions.
Uh-oh. There aren't going to be any, I hope.
Okay, no questions, so thank you. Oh, yeah, question. Microphone.
I'm sorry.
Is Martin Packard related to Hewlett Packard?
No,
Or is
he's
Packard
not.
of Hewlett Packard?
Because
No,
the Varian campus is almost next door to HP, so I thought.
Packard altogether.
Just down the street.
So Martin Packard was a graduate of Oregon State University. Okay, and a very interesting question, which I don't know how to answer, is that he was of military age. So I don't know how he got out of the draft. He may have been working deferred because he was at Berkeley doing something, and then he said, "Oh, I want to work for Felix Bloch." And how you just do that, I don't know. You know, when there's a war going on, but he did. So I just don't get it. But it was so. The other thing is, and this is a very sad thing actually. If you just go Wes Anderson, there's so much literature there that you can get your hands on. It's just absolutely amazing. However, one of the sources of information was something from Ray Freeman has a whole list of stuff. And I got that and I downloaded the stuff. And then I went back to see if there was more. It's all gone. So I have the original, but everything else is gone. You can't get it. And I actually asked Ron to check it out, and he said I can't get it either.
Yeah, I thought it was the usual IT thing, because Ray had a blog about, the history of NMR, and it was wonderful. It was wonderful. And I had gone there and made a copy of text and things, and Toby wrote me and said, "Oh, it's gone." And I thought, "Oh man, he's been murdered by Joel IT somehow, and he can't get there." But no.
But it's a travesty to lose that.
Yeah, maybe he just did. It's like he just didn't re-up the domain.
So Gareth pointed it out to me, and maybe if I ping Gareth again, he'll get it back up. I hope so, because it's really valuable stuff for the history. And the other sources that are interesting, Martin and Wes had an interview, which you can find on Google easily. He also did an interview with the IEEE people because he was involved in that, and that's on. And then there's something called pen letters, and they just boxes. I mean, this stuff is very well documented. I mean, there's huge sums of stuff. Now, how you get a hold of the stuff in pen letters, I'm not quite sure, but it's there. So anyhow, that's it.
Yes, okay.
So thanks for the wonderful talk. I feel like in the early age when the field just started, everything's so exciting, and like now back looking time as a young scientist, what do you think that can keep the younger generation excited and preserve this longevity of like for passion for research? Because if you think about that, right, in the beginning everything's so new, like so great. Now for a younger generation, look, there's just so much to learn already, and how do we feel we're gonna do something for the future that is so great compared to a lot of stuff already being done that is fantastic?
Well, I don't know quite how to answer that, because you see people like Alex Pines, others Alex is no longer active at Berkeley, but did a lot of work. What I can say for myself and some others, I just love what I was doing. And after a while, you just start making things and people know who you are doing what you're doing. And, it's very gratifying. I mean, last year at the ENC, I was at not last year, but the last time we were in Monterey, we had a dinner in a very different place from normal, but basically it was a very big place. And somebody came up to me and said, "You're Toby Zenz?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I still have some of your probes at Merck," which I haven't been to Merck in 20 years, and they still work. I'm amazed, and he thanked me for all that, and this keeps happening. But the other thing I will tell you is that we recently hired 2 people. One of them is now working at Joel and Peabody, and the other one we just hired, and both of these people came out of Sanji Han's group, and they're fantastic, and they will do great things. I have no doubt about it, and they're so much better than I was at that time. So I really do believe that things will move on. But again, it's persistence and patience, and just keep it to something you like. I mean, I love building probes. When I started building probes, it was chemistry, physics, and electronics. I was just, just wonderful. So it's, if you think about people who are really excited about what they're doing every day. I mean, I go visit Mark Conradi at the ABQMR. He's like a kid in a candy shop, and they're not doing high-field NMR, they're doing imaging on roots of sugar beets, he just loves it, it's just so cool for him. So when you find something you like, do it, and, money isn't everything, but it helps.
Other questions? Okay, well, let's thank Toby again for a great talk.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, John. Thank you, Dave.
Doing things.
Just before everybody leaves, we do have a 9 o'clock drawing here in just a few minutes for a Q1 bottle of wine. So stick around, get a ticket.
And Ray and all these guys, or know them. Ray's still with us, but
very inspirational. It's a very, very moving attribute.
Thank you.
Yeah, very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate your comment.
Right, yeah,
you have your ticket?
No.
So I talked with Peter, right, and it was a very nice conversation. It really was. We exchanged ideas and whatnot. I thought it was really a good thing.
Yeah, he was showing me your.
Yeah. So
He said he's gonna try it.
we should. I do, and it works really well for us. I'm telling you, it really, really well. So anyhow.